Behold, masses, it is I, Jesus Christ. I am here to deliver my scripture. Write this down, apostles. It is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Jesus, what do you think about this?
Evil eye of Selene. Ugh. Write this down as well. It is easier for crystal beasts to win worlds than for Evil Eye to pass into the kingdom of Meta.
Yeah, I'll just write down the first one.
Yeah, this is not going to be good. Ugh. Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Today we're looking at a new archetype, which will leave you with a potentially incorrect interpretation of a deck that may play completely differently than how I've built it. But Joseph, I can hear you say, why not exert caution and wait until a deck is proven before hyping it? Oh, you silly, naive fool. You know nothing of the archaic magic that is YouTube metrics. With that, let's take an ill-advised dive into the pools of Evil Eye. So here's the list, and yes, I'm playing a demise strategy. The archetype is 80% trap cards. What do you want from me? As always, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Evil Eye is Konami's latest installment in their evil plot to make every single card supertype broken beyond belief. This time, it's equipped spell cards. I can't wait until January 2030 when they finally break tunes. The Evil Eye of Selene is their flagship spell, an equipped spell that dramatically powers up your monster's effects and attack and on-theme traps, provided you keep it nourished with a healthy supply of your own life. And people say Yu-Gi-Oh's bad at flavor. Like every archetype released after 2016, they have an elemental hero Stratos, a field spell that searches an associated monster on activation, and payoff in the form of 2-for-1s and omni-negates, provided, of course, you're able to pay up. There are two interesting ways to play this deck. The first, which you've probably seen several videos about already, attempts to use the suite of excessively splashable Dangers, the Destrudo package, and the Phantom Knights for a turn 1 Azathoth setup, or quick access to their intensely middling Link monster, Zerakiel, King of the Evil Eye. The second, which you'll see today, is by supplementing their formidable back row lineup with classically strong stun traps, extremely powerful enablers like Heart of Demise and Pot of Extravagance, and a ludicrously low monster count. Our game plan is to begin by finding either the field spell or hard-drawing Cerziel, then using her effect to find a copy of Evil Eye of Selene, which protects the hell out of the monster it's equipped to, alongside boosting the potency of their powerful effects. Additional copies of either engine piece translate to thematic trap destruction, a suite of utility monsters, or generic good stuff interaction. Scapegoat to 1 certainly took a toll on slow, grindy decks with an affinity for special summoning on their opponent's turn, but Evil Eye monsters can get out of control extremely quickly on their own. Unlike other demise strategies, however, you'll also be racing against your own life total. Closing out the game before your life points hit 0 is tantamount to walking away with your lenses intact. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, we've got 3 Cerziel, who adds an Evil Eye to the hand when normal summoned and can destroy a special summoned monster our opponent controls as long as they're sporting the eye. After that is Medusa, who can banish monsters from the graveyard, Bagilius, who can foolish burial goods, and Catablapus, whose effect to card guard pales in comparison to his true purpose, delaying this video for a week while I waited for him to be released. For spells, we've got 3 Pot of Extravagance, 3 Card of Demise, 2 Terraforming, and 1 Scapegoat, followed by 3 Forbidden Awakening of the Evil Eye, which summons an Evil Eye from deck, 3 Evil Eye of Selene, which might be one too many, it's very searchable, and 3 Domain of the Evil Eye, which adds an Evil Eye monster, deals damage to your opponent if you take some in battle, and adds an Evil Eye monster to hand if it's destroyed. For traps, we're on 3 Impermanents, 2 HSD, 3 Strikes and a Warning, great idea in our self-burn deck, huh? And their tribal spells. 3 Jealous Disruption, which bounces up to 2 monsters, Death Control, which steals monsters, and 1 Sentence of the Evil Eye, which negates spells and traps, but mostly just evenly matched. In the extra deck, we're doing a bit of an extravagance board. One of their associated Link monster we're not ever going to make, 1 Borreload, 2 Boral Sword, 3 Nightmare Phoenix, 2 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 2 Link Spider, and 3 Link Haribo. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Necroz, the deck of choice for individuals who loved Duelist Alliance format but wouldn't dare play Burning Abyss. Our opponent's going first, and I can't determine why because I have no idea what the endgame of Necroz is. They're going to start by normal summoning a copy of Senju, getting a Chalice Slime to hand. They'll activate that effect, getting a Talismandra, and a copy of Colossalus to hand. They'll activate Colossalus's effect for a copy of Kaleidoscope, followed up with Preparation of Rites, then Kaleidoscope for both Unicorn and Valkyrius. Valkyrius will destroy the errant creatures on our opponent's side of the board, followed by a copy of Brionac, getting a copy of Trishula to hand, and a defense position Colossalus after a second prep. We're going to draw a copy of Infip for turn, then activate Domain to get a copy of Sezreal. Sezreal will add a trap to hand, then we will equip it with a copy of Evil Eye of Selene, following up with a Forbidden Awakening for Medusa. We will then activate the effect of Sezreal, which will bait out the Trishula from our opponent. We can set 4 cards and pass it back. Our opponent draws for turn, and Ash Blossom will activate the effect of Sezreal to destroy our Medusa, unfortunately. Our opponent's going to activate the effect of Manju. We have just the Infinite Impermanence for that, and we have just the Solemn Strike for the follow-up Exciton Knight. Now we can safely destroy our opponent's remaining monsters, provided they don't have a second copy of Trishula in hand. They'll go to battle phase, we'll try to destroy the Valkyrius, and we will be successful. They'll activate the effect of Necroz Mirror to get a cycle to hand, set a copy of Infip, and pass it back to us. For turn, we draw, a second copy of Domain, so we can safely destroy it with our copy of Sezreal. We will then activate that Domain. Our opponent will Ash Blossom, but thankfully, because of Domain's float, we have the Medusa back in hand and can start pressuring. We're going to go ahead and try to activate the effect of Medusa, but of course it gets infipped. It's not a big deal. I can deal without it. We'll get in for 41 and 14 before passing it back to our opponent, and what do they draw for turn but another ritual spell? That's rough, buddy. They're going to set 3 cards and pass it back to us, and expecting their baits will go to battle phase and deal lethal damage. Our second match is up against Guru Control, a deck that probably shouldn't be as good as it is based on how fair it plays. We are going first, so we're going to activate the effective domain to get a copy of Serziel to our hand. Next, we'll normal summon our copy of Serziel to get a copy of Selene. We'll equip it to the Serziel, set our entire hand, then special summon a copy of Bajilius, sending a Selene to the graveyard. We'll pass it back to our opponent, who will T-set in 2019! And then we'll draw a card of Demise for turn. We'll activate Bajilius' effect, go to battle phase, attack into this Guru. Our opponent will activate Subterra Final Battle. Thankfully, we do have the Sentence to negate it, and we have the Solemn Strike to negate the effect of Guru. We have cut them off of all of their linear plays, and then afterwards we can activate Card of Demise to find ourselves both a copy of Medusa and a bunch of draw spells. We're going to activate Evil Eye of Selene on our Medusa and pass it back to our opponent. For turn, they draw a Scapegoat, Rough. They'll set a copy of Guru and said Scapegoat before passing it back to us. The first thing we're going to do is activate Pot of Extravagance. We'll go ahead and draw 2 cards. Boy, Pot of Greed is good. And normal summon a copy of Serziel, adding a trap to hand. In battle phase, we will trigger the effect of Guru. Nothing we can do about that before getting in for 16 and 14 and passing it back to our opponent, who will immediately activate Scapegoat. I'm not particularly concerned because, of course, we did just get Jealous Disruption, but things could go awry. Our opponent's going to normal summon a copy of Subterra Nemesis Warrior and go to battle phase. I will take it, dealing 200 damage to our opponent with the field effect of Domain. We'll activate Jealous Disruption in response to the effect so they can't tag out for a powerful Subterra monster, and then we'll take a whole bunch of damage off of these Selene activations. In main phase 2, they'll go into Link Spider and Nightmare Phoenix. We will respond with a copy of Death Control. Unfortunately, we're going to have to also activate the effect of Serziel right now because we're about to lose Selene, and they have a response in Called by the Grave. They can go into Link Rebo, but that's just about it. From here, we should be able to easily win the game, especially with the terraforming off the top. We're going to activate said terraforming for a copy of Domain, then activate Evil Eye of Selene to add it back to our side of the field. That's going to trigger a whole bunch of effects when we activate Domain, taking 1,000 points of damage. We do have to end the game this turn or we are going to burn ourselves out, but thankfully we are more than capable of doing so. We can banish all that is necessary to boost our monster's attack, and our opponent reveals they have a final battle set before dying. Alright, so it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on, what else? Chaos Thunder Dragon. They're going first, which is terrible news for us, because off of this Allure of Darkness, they find what else but a format-destroying super threat. They're going to go into Sneck and then activate Gold Sarcophagus to trigger the effect of Roar, getting a Dark from deck. They'll then special summon a White Dragon Wyverbuster, go into Reproducus, go into a Summon Sorceress, trigger the effect of Dark to get a Hawk to hand, activate Hawk's effect to get Roar onto their side of the field, get Origin from deck, and then go into double Super Bolt. They'll set one spicy purple boy and pass it back to us. For turn, we draw a spell, which is not going to be much use. We're going to start with a copy of Extravagance, drawing 2 cards, normal summoning a copy of Serziel, activating and losing the game. Oh boy, well, we still do have 2 cards that interact with our opponent, so potentially we could still take this. They're going to start by activating Summon Sorceress. Oh god, you can just activate it again if she survives. I've never seen it happen. They'll then link up into Curious, triggering a whole bunch of grave effects in the process and bringing a Dark back to their side of the board. Curious's effect is going to trigger. They'll special summon a copy of White Dragon Wyverbuster. They'll activate the effect of Fusion, which thankfully we do have negation for, but the Nightmare Phoenix is going to be enough to clean up our remaining board, and they will destroy our entire field. They'll pass it back to us, and we have to draw something amazing that is not a spell card. We do draw an Infinite Impermanence, but that's hardly enough, and we'll concede. So it's time for game 2, and this hand isn't fantastic, but if nothing else, it's very resistant to Eradicator Epidemic Virus, calling Spell. You can't discard him if you never draw him. We're going to start by normal summoning a copy of Serziel, getting a copy of Evil Eye of Selene to our hand. Unfortunately, we have to. We'll equip it to the Serziel, set 3 traps, and hope for the best. Our opponent's going to lead with a Dark, then for turn draw a copy of Hawk. They'll start with a copy of Allure of Darkness, banishing Dark again and triggering its effect before going into Nessie. We whiff, they'll special summon a copy of Wyverbuster and start chewing through our back row. Thankfully, the card they've targeted is infinite impermanence. They'll trigger the grave effect of White Dragon Wyverbuster to get a Black Dragon Collapse Serpent, which they will then special summon, triggering the effect of Origin. They'll activate Thunder Dragon for a couple more Thunder Dragons, go to Unicorn, which we unfortunately have to Solemn Warning, trigger the grave effect of Collapse Serpent, go into Hawk, into Dark, normal summon an Origin Thunder Dragon, go into Superbolt with the Dark, and force the Jealous Disruption from us. In main phase 2, they're going to activate the effect of Roar, and we have cleared the field! Unfortunately, we have no ability to OTK, so we'll just go into Medusa, attack directly with our copy of Serziel, set the copy of Jealous Disruption we got back with our Medusa, and hope for the best. Our opponent's going to lead with a White Dragon Wyverbuster, triggering the Banish effect of Roar to get a Dark. They'll go into Reproducus, activate the effect of Hawk. We will destroy the Dark in response, which is pretty good here, until they Tribute Summon the Thunder Dragon and go into Superbolt, prompting the Jealous Disruption, chaining their copy of EEV, then activating Thunder Dragon Fusion, tucking their remaining Thunder Dragons. Very heads-up play for my opponent here, extremely next level, really played around everything here, and unfortunately have basically closed out the game here. I promise we play 6 monsters, but we seem to have found them all. We'll activate Vigilius' effect, we'll bring back an Evil Eye of Selene, but it's not going to do much. It sort of protects our monster, but can obviously be destroyed by any hand effect. Our opponent is going to activate the grave effect of Thunder Dragon Fusion, then activate Roar. To return the Thunder Dragon Fusion to hand, they'll activate Battery Man Solar's effect, then activate Thunder Dragon Fusion to cycle the Thunder Dragons in the graveyard so they can again use the effect of Thunder Dragon Titan to wipe our board. This is just pathetic at this point. They'll go ahead and destroy our copy of Evil Eye of Selene and start attacking, wiping what meager board we had left. For turn, we draw a card that does literally nothing. We'll style just a little bit before conceding. So we're back with the deck, and I'm willing to chalk up a reasonable amount of that set up to bad draws, but it's possible it just has a bad matchup against resilient, chewy decks like Chaos Thundies. Let's check out the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. Serziel is a pretty reasonable win condition. A pseudo-Drident you have to use an arm and a leg to remove is a huge issue for a vast majority of decks, and the backup trap cards means he's extremely likely to stick. 2, they have the tools to deal with the metagame. In theory, cards like Jealous Disruption are amazing versus Thunder, and stealing a Kagari's gotta feel pretty good. Certainly the deck has game against the meta. And 3, Evil Eye makes a convincing argument as one of the early standout decks that can make optimal use of Pot of Extravagance. It goes into the extra deck once in a blue moon, and can really make excellent use of discount Pot of Greed. And the cons. 1, the life point management is actually quite difficult. I wrote it off originally, but it's exceptionally easy to just accidentally die because of Selene's mandatory trigger, especially if you're an idiot like me. 2, with such a shallow card pool, it just doesn't have the depth of available playstyles something like Thunder Dragon does, making it infinitely harder to effectively go second or play an adaptable style of gameplay. And 3, this deck gets a lot worse once opponents know how to play against it. Right now, people are hesitant to do things like pop the Selene since it recurs itself, but turning off an effect for a turn and then demanding a payment of 1,000 plus 500 if there's a second one can end the game if they're managing poorly. All in all, it's a fun deck that's getting a lot of mileage because its weaknesses aren't immediately noticeable. I have faith that it'll remain just that, a fun deck, until it gets more cohesive support, or at least a second playable monster. Keep your eyes peeled. So that's that. I didn't want to jump the gun in case the last revealed monster was a double helix, but it's looking a little more like a charming resort staff. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/mbtygo every Monday from 7 to 9 Eastern Standard Time, and if you have an idea for a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below and I'll see what I can do. Otherwise, I'll see you Friday.